Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here. Many years ago, I reviewed all 3 seasons of Avatar: The Last Airbender. However, I have to admit that those videos have aged as finely as milk. It's been a whole septennium since those videos though, and you know what? After rewatching Avatar, I actually don't think it's as good as I remember. Heck, I'd go as far as to say that it's kind of overrated. It has its charms and strengths, but its many glaring flaws are so dang obvious to me now. While I have zero plans to re-review Avatar, I can still revisit the series with a ranking of its villains. Let's go. Mayor Tong. When Aang is sent to jail for Avatar Kyoshi's murder of Emperor Shin, the corrupt mayor takes our hero to court and does whatever he can to contrive the verdict that he wants. This is a very isolated villain in the grand scope of things, but that doesn't make Tong any less frustrating as a Weasley antagonist. He's a stubborn and petty man who is running a courtroom that's been purposefully designed to support his own bias, or while he abuses his political position to play judge and jury, dismiss all reasonable evidence, and deny the accused any right to an attorney.
I've already told you, it's just me and the accused. You can't call any witnesses?
Tong doesn't give a flying rat about finding the truth or reaching a just conclusion. He just wants his history fanfiction to be validated as fact, and it's downright pathetic.
Then the Avatar showed up and killed him, and that's how it happened.
Sure, Kyoshi does later arrive to confess her crime, but she also says that Shin himself was a dangerous war tyrant. However, Tong flat out ignores the latter as a defense, and shows a disturbing eagerness to leap straight into the punishment stage. Which, mind you, he treats like a game show spectacle, because Tong hasn't disgraced law ethics enough already.
Come on, torture machine! Eaten by bears!
The joke is on the mayor though, because in order to protect his town, the coward switches the punishment in a moment of panic, going to show how this cretinous slug only respects the Avatar when it best suits him.
We'll celebrate a new Avatar Day in honor of the day Avatar Aang saved us from the rough rhino invasion.
I decided to slide this dubious mayor at the very bottom of my list because compared to other Avatar foes, he's just a coward with more inherited political benefits than any actual notable skills or intimidations. General Mung. In one Avatar episode, our heroes arrive in a village that's suffering from sickness, all thanks to the local pollution caused by General Mung's factory. So, Katara dons the alter ego of the Painted Lady legend to heal said village and take down Mung's factory. It's admittedly hard to watch these poor innocent villagers going through hell, all thanks to the Phi Nation's selfish decision to plant a toxic factory right next to them, the kind of parasitic colonialism that we've come to expect from the Phi Nation. What's worse is that Mung loves to manipulate a self-appointed hero narrative, and cruelly frame this defenseless dying village as the poisonous ones, all while refusing to hear out the villagers themselves and Weasley acting like he's the only real victim here.
We're going to cure the world of this wretched village.
This angry baddie is no brain-dead or useless beefcake though, because the episode still paints him as a keen-eyed villain with pretty good observation skills.
And I suppose you drew the army emblem on your containers too.
Not to mention, unlike every other firebender attacking this village, Mung actually refuses to immediately buy the Painted Lady's validity, and is even willing to fight the supposed ghost.
I'll take care of you myself!
I only ranked Mung this low because he doesn't exactly get enough screen time to make a lasting impression. And well, he's quickly defeated in a rather undignified fashion.
Leave this village and never come back.
The Pirate Captain. This chief of a band of sea buccaneers is a crafty salesman of bootleg goods, but he gets tied up in our hero's quest once Katara steals their valuable waterbending scroll. What I like about this captain and his crooks is how they proudly commit to their pirate shtick in a fantasy world where elemental bending is the norm. This does of course give them a disadvantage, because they're not exactly prepared for fighting water whips or flame attacks, but I won't deny their determined gumption as practical weapon wielders. I wouldn't say that the captain and his crew are completely apolitical though, because they're more than happy to sign allegiances with major Fire Nation figures. However, these are still treacherous pirates through and through, so their partnerships with land dwellers can often be challenged by their greed for wealth or taste for petty revenge. Criminal weaknesses that more powerful villains are willing to resourcefully exploit in the show.
That's some tasty gold.
What do you need us to do? I believe you're acquainted with Prince Zuko.
The offshore Warden. When a village of earthbenders gets sent to a war prison ship, Katara tries to motivate them all into leading a rebellion, but the cruel Warden has worn them all out into submission, and his metal ship is impervious to any earthbending. There's an obnoxious arrogance to this Warden that makes him extremely detestable, in a fun-to-hate sort of way. Although, this cockiness doesn't come from nowhere, because he's more than proved his unflinching authority as a power-mad prison tyrant, to the point where any rebellion attempts don't shake him whatsoever, or because he's smugly confident that his oppression has 100% paid off, which, in a way, is sadly true.
Foolish girl. You thought a few inspirational words and some coal would change these people?
While the Warden's repression of his prisoners has been built on a strategic system of mistreatment, I would say that his rise to power mainly stems from a notorious impulsive nature, an unpredictable temper that keeps his prisoners in line while showing his minions who's the boss. That's right, not even his loyal soldiers are spared from his fury.
That's not really the point, is it, sir?
I'll decide what the point is, fool.
Luckily, it's only a matter of time until the Earthbenders finally fight for themselves, with said rebellion forcing the prisoners to think outside of the box and creatively work within their imposed limitations, showing the Warden that his own captees can be just as aggressively spontaneous as him.
No, please, I can't swim.
Don't worry, I hear cowards float.
Fire Lord Sozin. Long ago, Ozai's grandfather, Fire Lord Sozin, kickstarted the Fire Nation's uprising as a world-dominating tyranny, but the Avatar at the time, Roku, was a thorn in Sozin's side. So I do understand the importance of this villain, as he did create the very blueprint for all fascist Fire Lords, and wrote the ideology that would define his descendants' villainy.
We should share this prosperity with the rest of the world. In our hands is the most successful empire in history. It's time we expanded it.
Not to mention, he does show how the Avatar and national leaders can be close allies, a foreshadow for later, but also how valuable an Avatar is to keeping said power figures in line. However, besides serving as the origin story for the Fire Nation's current evil direction, Sozin isn't that particularly compelling or noteworthy as a standalone villain. In the end, he's just the first of many Fire Lords with the same ambitions and principles.
The four nations are meant to be just that. Four.
Roku, you haven't even stopped to consider the possibilities.
He's not especially tactical or strong as an antagonist either, because the Avatar easily creamed him in a flash, and he had to wait decades for a lucky opportunity to remove Roku as an obstacle.
Without you, all my plans are suddenly possible.
Sozin has his world-building purpose in the show, but that's it really. Wan Shi Tong. This mysterious giant owl is the keeper of the world's knowledge, but once Sokka takes a much-needed piece of info for defeating the Fire Kingdom, Wan goes into predator mode. While you could say that this bird is simply a noble protector of a valuable and sacred collection, it's obvious that his personal prejudice towards humans stops him from thinking rationally or fairly. Like, sure, he has every right to be apprehensive or skeptical towards all of his guests, especially after Zhao's recent visit, but said cautiousness has turned Wan paranoid and quick to judge. Yeah, he might mean well, but his very stubbornness has made him see a tyrant wage war with a black and white perspective.
You think you're the first person to believe their war was justified? Countless others before you have come here, seeking weapons or weaknesses or battle strategies.
As a predator, the towering, angry owl is a relentless force to deal with, because he persistently hunts our heroes down with a ruthless fierceness, while also demonstrating how knowledge can be effectively weaponized.
Your waterbending won't do you much good here. I've studied northern water style, southern water style, even foggy swamp style.
Wan really is a fantastic example of how skilled and intelligent anti-heroes can also make for truly imposing threats as unexpected villains.
What are you doing?
I'm taking my knowledge back.
And the fact that he impulsively decides to topple his very own library further intensifies our hero's escape by doubling their chances of fatal ends. Combustion Man. Once Zuko becomes concerned that Aang is maybe still alive, he hires an intimidating hitman to take him out, and Sokka gives this fire assassin the slick nickname of Combustion Man. This villain is a mute firebender, with a character that's mainly defined by his badass design and flashy unique power, but I think it would be rather unfair of me to label him as shallow. He's a formidable force of fiery destruction with a relentless resolve, an unstoppable hitman with only Aang's burnt carcass on his mind, and no hesitation when it comes to fighting off any element at all. He might be intensely aggressive in combat, but he's not all thuggish brawn. Not only does he instinctively depend on his solid metal prosthetics for sharp defenses or deflection, but his trademark third eye also helps him to stay 100% on track. Not to mention, he can be a crafty fellow at times, from violently intercepting a Fire Nation message to collect valuable info, then burning it as an extra measure, to strategically utilizing Aang's friends as bait for one catcher effort. This is no mindless blockhead, folks. While Combustion Man is stone-faced and silent at default, his characterization can sometimes come through, most notably when he refuses to take Zuko's orders once the prince changes his mind. A stubbornness that shows how his hit has less to do with money or professionalism, and more about his personal assassin pride, indicating that backing down would possibly bruise his ego deeply, and he's willing to betray a royal client to avoid said failure.
I'll pay you double to stop!
Although, I can't deny that Combustion Man gets the most funnily ironic dev scene in the whole show. General Fong. This leader of an Earth Kingdom military base is so determined to trigger Aang's avatar state that he ends up resorting to extreme dangerous measures to achieve so. Now, this general doesn't seem so bad at first, from giving our heroes a grand welcome, to explaining how his motives are rooted in saving his soldiers from further bloodshed.
That's the infirmary, and those soldiers are the lucky ones. They came back. Every day the Fire Nation takes lives. People are dying, Aang.
His initial ideas for releasing Aang's avatar state are pretty ethically sound.
Is it working? Is it working? I can't tell. Somebody tell me if I'm in the avatar state, because I don't have a good view of myself. Am I talking too loud?
I guess he could talk the Fire Lord to death.
But once Aang wants out of contriving his special superpower by force, the general shockingly flips a switch and shows what an expert earthbender who rose the military ranks can really do. These kids are his expendable test subjects in a twisted war experiment, hence why he's so coldly nonchalant about dialing up his threat levels or torture efforts for every agonizingly tense second that Aang isn't in his ultimate form, thus giving us a deeply unhinged army general with no clear boundaries or ethical lines, but plenty of unlimited and omnipotent power as a supreme official. He might have originally set out to just end the war, but it's hard to say that these motives justify his actions when he becomes so desperately obsessed with triggering the avatar state that he recklessly endangers innocent lives and destroys his very own military base.
Anybody got a problem with that?
Koh, this strange spirit holds important answers for Aang's quest, but the avatar will have to remain completely emotionless during his visit, or Koh will literally steal the boy's face. This villain was actually heavily inspired by the Japanese folklore monster Nopperabo. Said uncanny influence totally comes through in Koh, who is pure Nickelodeon nightmare fuel. He's this slinking, face-shifting creature with a crawling body that has way too many legs, and a bassy, crisp voice that'll make your hair stand on end.
We've already met them, actually. Twee and La, your moon and ocean.
Throughout his episode, Koh retains a constant, blood-curdling presence, all because he wears his trademark stolen faces like badges of honor, while sneakily taunting Aang into showing any hint of emotion.
It's been a long time since I've added a child's face to my collection.
A nail-biting tension that's made needle-fin sharper by the fact that Koh has a historic grudge against the Avatar, thus making Aang into a prey that will taste of sweet revenge to Koh. Of course, Aang does eventually retrieve the valuable info that he needs, but dang does the spirit come grippingly close to having his nasty way.
The koi fish! I must be going now.
Xinfu and Master Yu. Xinfu is a gruff but charismatic earthbending tournament host, and Master Yu is a respected earthbending teacher with his very own academy. The two become a villain duo together, once hired to find a runaway Toph. On paper, these two villains couldn't be more opposite, but even before they become a duo, we can already see a mutual love for money between the two. You see, both are running shady businesses that prioritize profit over earthbending values.
If you pay for the whole year in advance, I'll bump you up to the next belt.
And using Toph's wealthy family connections for selfish gain.
If you want to see your daughter again, bring 500 gold pieces to the arena.
Once they team up, we end up with a rather colourful yet contradictive dynamic. On the one hand, their shared greed for money can cause distractions, and their opposing villainy styles can lead to a clash of ideals.
'Cause she's wanted dead or alive.
No, she's not. I'm certain her father wants her alive.
On the other hand, combining Yu's brains with Xinfu's brawn does sometimes actually pay off, because we end up with a solid balance of tactical wit and aggressive confidence.
Let's take them now.
This place is full of desperate characters. If they find out we're collecting a bounty, we might have to fight them all just to keep our prize.
Sure, the duo do eventually capture Toph, but the talented kid, in a moment of survival instinct, becomes the first ever metal bender in her escape efforts, which is quite embarrassing for our villains, who already knew firsthand that this little girl had huge potential.
I'm going to be stuck in here forever with you, aren't I?
I have to go to the bathroom.
Fire Lord Ozai. Ozai is the leader of the Fire Nation and is determined to conquer the world under the guise of spreading his kingdom's culture, but he will have to rid the Avatar to accomplish this. After rewatching Avatar The Last Airbender, I realised that Ozai isn't as exceptional as I remember, and my thoughts on his villainy have rapidly changed. Firstly, Ozai is incredibly unremarkable and generic. Look, I get that Ozai is supposed to be the yin to Aang's yang, as the Fire Lord represents the polar opposite of Aang's values and principles. But, 1. This supposed mature symbolism isn't anything deeper than Aang good and Ozai evil, a very simple kid storytelling formula that's as old as time. 2. Many other cartoons have used their villains as allegories for all things wicked, or juxtapositions against their heroes' high morals, while still managing to give them flavour, texture and depth, from inventive, compelling backstories to engaging long-running rivalries against the main hero. I have nothing against a cartoon depending on a reliable basic trope, but recycling a successful cliche while adding nothing unique beyond he can shoot fire is just uninspired. Secondly, for a character that's supposed to be this series' ultimate big bad, Ozai ends up getting far less screen time than other primary villains, and his underlings receive much richer development than him. Or while Ozai himself just becomes a caricature of bad dictators who randomly pops into the show now and again, only interacting with our main character when the show needs a placeholder for its final boss. Sure, Ozai apparently gets more development in the Avatar comics, but in the context of the cartoon itself, Ozai is just ticking the boxes of what a villain needs to be at the bare minimum. Okay, so I have a lot to complain about with Ozai, yet I ranked him at a reasonable spot. Why? Well, putting aside his underwhelming generosity, I won't deny that he's still a very theatrical and imposing baddie. Say what you will about what Ozai lacks, but he's still a believably dangerous force to be reckoned with, who totally owns his menace while sat on a fiery throne, and demonstrating a cartoony level of shameless evil. Plus, the show does do a decent job at hyping up the impending doom of how Sozin's comet will advantage this maniac. Ozai may be generic, but he's not boring.
You are right. I do have the power. I have all the power in the world!
However, we now come to what I dislike the most about Ozai's character, and that is his eventual showdown against Aang. Not only am I no longer a fan of the show's grand hero versus villain climax, because it puts melodramatic spectacle above action storytelling, as it's nothing more complex than Ozai is overpowered thanks to the comet, then Aang is overpowered after letting the Avatar state carry him. But I've also come to resent Aang's pacifistic solution for defeating a mass-murdering warlord. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for Aang questioning his ethics as a lifelong monk, and the show does let previous avatars validate their own killings of genocidal tyrants. However, Aang's spiritual quest comes off more like a hunt for confirmation bias.
Only justice will bring peace.
I knew I shouldn't have asked Kyoshi.
Plus, it's a tad too convenient that Aang happens to be meditating on a godlike entity who can simply hand him a favourable solution to his moral dilemma. I actually used to find Aang's resolution of removing Ozai's bending to be noble, but over time, I've realised that it's actually a very flawed conclusion. 1. Ozai never showed any mercy to the many that he ordered to be killed or sacrificed, so why does he deserve any humanity? He signed away that right long ago. And it's cringe seeing Aang showing guilt when he almost kills this inhuman monster. 2. Taking away Ozai's bending and imprisoning him is far from a perfect alternative to executing him. If the Fire Lord escapes his cell, which isn't 100% impossible, then Ozai can just manipulate his remaining loyalists into bending for him, and start his tyranny all over again. Ozai's power didn't just come from his firebending, he was also a dangerous cult leader. When it comes down to it, this so-called compromise seems to be putting the Avatar's personal philosophies before realistic public safety, the very opposite of noble heroism. If anything, I would say that the ideals behind Ozai's defeat have become naively outdated, because plenty of cartoons since have shown that a hero can erase a genocidal villain without them losing their honor as righteous characters. The Boiling Rock Warden. When a reformed Zuko takes Sokka to the dangerous prison island of Boiling Rock in a stealth mission to free Sokka's imprisoned loved ones, our heroes must deal with Boiling Rock's dauntingly scary Warden. In a way, this villain is like an upgrade of the Offshore Warden, as he's a far more hands-on and strategic prison official, with so much pride for his escape record that he will sacrifice his very own life to retain his reputation.
No one has ever escaped from here. I'd sooner jump in the boiling lake myself than let that record fall.
It's impossible for him to have tabs on everything happening in his prison, because this is a world with no CCTV technology, but he still aims for perfection and demonstrates a street smartness that's on par with Sokka's.
I know you and your cronies are not smart enough to come up with that little escape plan. So you're gonna tell me who is?
Oh, and the fact that he doesn't 100% rely on his firebending to easily strike fear into his prisoners shows how much confidence he has in his own barbaric brutality.
Now look me in the eye! See? Isn't that better?
While our hero's undercover deception is highly effective, I would say that the Warden's commitment to snuffing out their conspiracy is just as efficient. From his unforgiving interrogations, to his vigilant and organized authority during escape attempts.
Guards! Secure the perimeter and lock down the prisoners! Now!
Not to mention, the fact that this Warden is the uncle of Mei, Zuko's ex, gives our villain the upper hand. Not just because he can use Zuko's identity as leverage, but also due to how he later sneakily utilizes his niece against the prince.
But I have to do this to save my country.
Save it? You're betraying your country.
Now, yes, the Warden does eventually become a hostage to Team Avatar, but this nutjob slickly breaks free using his own bare strength and actually sincerely stands by his dramatic pact from earlier.
He wants us to cut the line. But if we cut the line, there's no way he'll survive.
He knows that.
This is the kind of self-honor that puts the cowardly sea cucumber to shame. June. This badass goth uses a trusty Shirshu named Nyla to hunt down the Avatar for Zuko. As a unique hybrid of the wolf, anteater and star-nosed mole, Nyla can be a highly effective hunting predator with keen smelling senses and a stun tongue that's actually able to take down the mighty Appa. However, this is not to say that Nyla is carrying June as a villainess, because June is still the one in command. Not only is she an adaptable and committed rider, but she will also whip a minion into action once its smelling duties are over. However, as successful as June's scheme is, it's not a flawless system, because like with any wild animal, Nyla has her natural weaknesses. June is also a lot of fun when she's off her steed too. From dishing snarky insults towards the pampered royals.
We'll pay your weight in gold.
Make it your weight, then we got a deal.
To handling her own as a dynamic warrior in her favourite seedy taverns. While you might argue that she's a neutral, money-interested bounty hunter, her choice to sell herself out to Prince Zuko technically aligns her with the Fire Nation. Because you can't exactly be politically grey when you're shameless about assisting a fascist regime. Although, June does end up redeeming herself during the show's final arc, by showing a more affectionate treatment of Nyla and helping our heroes locate Iroh after he escapes from Ozai's dungeon.
Your uncle's somewhere beyond the wall. Nyla's getting twitchy, so he can't be too far. Good luck.
Jet. After losing his parents to the brutal rampages of the Fire Nation, young Jet has formed a resistance of treehouse rebels, but his ethics come into question once we learn that he's willing to sacrifice innocent lives to wipe out a group of Fire Nation soldiers. While we can understand Jet's grief and his desire to end the Fire Nation's tirade, the way that he goes about his rebellion is what makes him a terrorist villain. Heck, what we initially find cool about him as a rebel fighter naturally translates into useful ploys for his role as a roguish antagonist, like his nimble acrobatics as a treetop warrior, or his ability to charismatically charm everyone that he meets. This may be just a teenage lad, but he's adapted to his woodland base like it's his native home, and he's disturbingly conniving for his age.
See? There's a compartment for poison in the knife. He was sent to eliminate me. You helped save my life, Sokka.
Sure, Jet has every right to take out colonial warmongers, but his war trauma and firebender prejudice have warped him so much that he fails to recognize the nuances of fighting for justice.
Won't they get wiped out too?
Look, Duke, that's the price of ridding this area of the Fire Nation.
Jet has had no adults to steer him through teenhood, and his taste for revenge has festered inside him. Hence why his attempt to play resistance fighter is riddled with reckless misguidance, all while he's deluded himself into thinking that losing loved ones entitles him to cherry pick his morals or ignore his sense of humanity, which is far from true, when our equally grieving heroes prove otherwise. The thing is, Jet had every promise of using his backstory and talents to become an earthbending hero, or maybe even an extra member of Team Avatar. Heck, once his attack is thwarted, Jet attempts to redeem himself with a second chance, and even gets to briefly prove that he is fully capable of living up to his Robin Hood persona for real. Unfortunately, Jet once again falls prey to his seething bigotry and unhealthy obsession for revenge. Thus, his new start is immediately foiled by his very own hubris and natural instinct to leap into self-righteous action without thinking.
There is no war within the walls. Here we are safe. Here we are free.
Now yes, brainwashed Jet does end up heading in a redemption arc of his own, once our heroes free him of his cultish spell of course. But tragically, it's not an organically paced road to self-improvement, as Lake Laogai is no place for emotional processing, and Long Feng has technically robbed Jet of most of his agency.
The Earth King has invited you to Lake Laogai.
I am honored to accept his invitation.
It can be hard to forgive Jet, and we have every right to deeply resent his callous and impulsive take on vigilantism. I mean, let's never forget that he was once willing to remorselessly sacrifice civilian lives for his cause. However, there's still a melancholy to a child being traumatized by war, then left all alone to heal from said scars as an orphan teen, while being forced to grow up way too fast, only to immaturely surrender to his vindictiveness in a messy and misguided search for a hero identity, and inevitably become one of many war fatalities at the hands of a fellow Earth national, mind you, the very culture that he set out to stand up for. Zuko. Zuko has not only been severely scarred by his own father, Fire Lord Ozai, but the prince has also been banished until he can capture the Avatar. So, with guidance from his wise uncle Iroh, Zuko vows to restore his honor by snatching Aang alive. Now yes, Zuko is very much a whiny teenager with angsty mood swings, and a notable lack of experience or menace. However, he greatly compensates for his inadequacies and immaturity as the brainwashed son of a warlord, using his military upbringing to inspire naval game plans or sneaky stealth methods, thus challenging his reputation as a spoiled, reclusive prince, while proving himself to be a much more developed nemesis to Aang than his dad.
I've spent years preparing for this encounter. Training, meditating. You're just a child.
Well, you're just a teenager.
There's also this underdog quality to him, because while his privileged hunting rivals are handed bountiful resources, Zuko has to depend on his own navigation skills, manipulative pawns, or imaginative wit. Heck, a part of us even guiltily roots for the prince, despite knowing his malicious intent towards our hero. A bit like when we secretly cheer for the hindered Wile E. Coyote in his catch for the Bro Runner.
Things will never return to normal. But the important thing is, the Avatar gives Zuko hope.
Zuko's firebending skills do start off rough and raw, and his failing mental health does hold back his spiritual potential as a bender. However, the last thing I would call Zuko is underdetermined. What Zuko lacks in grace or technique, he makes up for with his unrelenting and stubborn drive to prove himself and defend his honor. A gutsy tenacity that helps him to impressively hold his own in chases after the Avatar, or duels against peers that are obviously leagues ahead of him. Now, unlike the majority of rogues on this list, Zuko doesn't totally fit the traditional villain archetype. Sure, he does some pretty dangerous things in the show, and leans heavily into typical villainous theatrics. But behind his guarded bravado are glimpses of a vulnerable child with morals passed on by the only loving members of his family. Not only can these repressed emotions actually slip out during serious Avatar hunts, but you can also tell that Iroh is doing his very best to reach in and pull them out of him, as he takes on the father figure role that his brother failed to embrace.
Understanding others, the other elements, and the other nations will help you become whole.
Do I think Zuko's redemption holds up upon rewatch? Well, while I did realize that his villain arc goes on for longer than I actually remember, and his willing return to the Fire Nation did make me kind of lose a fraction of my original sympathy for him, I do appreciate how realistically messy and scattered his coming of age is. And like how the show vividly tackles the physical and mental toll of breaking free from a cult. As a survivor of a cult-like relationship myself, I have to say that the show is eerily accurate.
What you did beneath that lake, it was in such conflict with your image of yourself that you are now at war within your own mind and body.
Not to mention, no one can accuse him of half-arsing his efforts to redeem himself, because hot damn does he go the extra mile to repent. I mean, not only does he use his Fire Nation connections or knowledge to aid Team Avatar, but he also puts his all into paying back every person that he's ever betrayed or hurt.
How can you forgive me so easily? I thought you would be furious with me.
I was never angry with you. I was sad because I was afraid you lost your way.
I'm admittedly on the fence over whether I personally forgive him myself, because I'm still mulling over his arc after my recent Avatar rewatch, but the case for his redemption is undeniably strong. Hama. One day, our heroes meet a sweet old lady called Hama, who becomes Katara's waterbending teacher, but something seems rather off about her. This is, without a doubt, the creepiest villain in Avatar. What makes her work so well is how the episode toys with our suspicions, as Hama sporadically dances between seeming like anyone's lovely grandma to acting weird, bordering on sinister.
This is a mysterious little town you have here.
Mysterious town for mysterious children.
An unpredictable nature that's blurred even further by voice acting queen Tress MacNeille, an actress who is renowned for her ability to voice elderly women in a variety of ways.
You would have me use my feminine charms to take advantage of that poor man? I think you and I are going to get along swimmingly.
At the same time, there are a number of unsettling clues to the truth. Not only does the episode open up with Toph sensing suffering under the very mountain, but Hama's lessons also have a dose of the macabre to them.
It's a shame about the lilies, though.
They're just flowers. When you're a waterbender in a strange land, you do what you must to survive.
Then, all the puzzle pieces align perfectly once the cat is out of the bag, as Hama horrifyingly reveals that she's actually mastered the grim art of puppeteering human blood, which she's been using to imprison the Fire Nation locals. A taboo skill that turns its eerie head once moonlight strikes, as she exploits her twisted talent to overpower benders or turn loved ones against each other. Sure, she may have a sympathetic backstory as a traumatized prisoner of war, but our pity for her can only go so far when her victims tend to be innocent citizens, and she shows a shameless, sick gleam whenever she does abuse her bloodbending, making her into one of the most terrifying kids' cartoon villains of all time.
Congratulations, Katara. You're a bloodbender.
Long Feng. Long is not only the personal advisor to the Earth King, but also the leader of Ba Sing Se's corrupted secret police. While our heroes stay in this city, Long keeps his eye on them, but Team Avatar vow to expose this shady man. Instead of utilizing his native earthbending or a brand of martial arts for his villainy, Long relies on string pulling as a Machiavellian shadow figure, all in a bid to protect the ancient culture of the city that he's very proud of.
Our economy would be ruined. Our peaceful way of life, our traditions would disappear.
He's a rat-like underground conspirator who is totally aware of his misgivings and weaknesses, but greatly compensates for said setbacks through psychological deception, a practice that's helped him to not only rise the ranks, but also have his hand in every political and cultural aspect of the city, as he uses the Dai Li to act as a violent extension of his silent dictatorship and depends on brainwashed mascots to act as creepy interchangeable tour guides, who can give a guarded and micromanaged experience of the city to visitors, while also conveniently suppressing anyone from exposing Long's indoctrination.
Come with me, please.
What happened to Judy?
I'm Judy. I'll be your host as long as you're in our wonderful city.
Thus turning Ba Sing Se into a North Korea-esque police state where concentrated propaganda comes before public safety, and those who pursue the truth are treated as infectious parasites.
Should we take care of him?
No. It's much too dangerous for us to confront him directly. Let's see if we can still handle this quietly.
When Team Avatar eventually expose Long, he's still smart enough to come up with fast excuses, quick lies, or snappy guilt trips. It doesn't matter what evidence is thrown or which questions are asked, Long always has a swift response at the ready and keeps an impressive cool about each slippery fib.
I've never even seen a sky bison, Your Majesty. Frankly, I thought they were extinct.
Not even being thrown in jail puts an end to Long's underhanded scheming, because thanks to outside connections and a secret partnership with an undercover Azula, Long can casually continue to pull the strings from behind bars. He also cunningly keeps an eye on Azula, thus sneakily adding an invisible second layer to his conspiracy. Yes, Long's puppet mastery can get that complex.
And the Fire Nation princess is cooperating?
Oh yes, more than cooperating. She's really taken charge.
It's like Long Feng lives and breathes manipulation, and is so much of a sociopath that he has no idea how to do anything else. Heck, I think that retaining any remnant of power has now overshadowed his cultural pride. The one and only threat to Long's attempted comeback is, unsurprisingly, the fiery uprising of the charismatic Azula, who has always been moves ahead of Long and already taken everything from him, going to prove that Long Feng was never significantly strong as a political figure. He was just calculating enough to deceive or control those in higher positions or respected roles. Without the Dai Li under his thumb or a monarch to whisper lies to, Long Feng is nothing, and that's truly humiliating.
You've beaten me at my own game.
Don't flatter yourself. You were never even a player.
Azula. As Fire Lord Ozai's youngest child, Princess Azula does all she can to impress her father, and she becomes a major force in the hunt for the Avatar, going as far as to compete against her very own brother Zuko. What I've come to like about Azula is that she's essentially a dark twist on the animated princess trope, a young royal who embodies everything rotten about privileged monarchs, but is also, to put it bluntly, a terrible person.
So please, tell me why on the most important day of my life you've decided to leave a pit in my cherry?
However, as spoiled and bratty as she is, Azula doesn't simply sit back while others hunt the Avatar for her. Sure, she does have a knack for wrangling her friends into being her reluctant minions, but this wicked princess is also able to completely hold her own as a bender, and a trademark blend of wild lightning and cold blue fire totally reflect her unhinged apathy. The the fact that she's been primarily raised by a warlord, and her idea of a normal family gathering has always been a serious military meeting, means that Azula's brain has been filled up with every tactical strategy or warfare instinct in the Fire Nation's manual.
Even though his army was outnumbered, he cleverly calculated his advantages. The enemy was downwind and there was a drought. Their defenses burned to a crisp in minutes.
She's able to swiftly command orders with a chilling confidence, notice minute details that most villains would foolishly ignore, and read her manipulation victims like a book. She's a princess who knows how to utilize her Nepo power, but there's always a crafty intellect or deeper purpose to set authority abuse.
Set the net on fire.
Of course, Princess.
Much like with Zuko though, there is an element of misfortune to her character. She's someone who was raised in a toxic environment that encouraged evil ideology, and her only attentive parent not only feared Azula's early warning signs, but was also sadly banished when Azula was only 9. So, Azula suffers from abandonment issues, family pressures, and a severe lack of healthy constructive parenting, with the scars from said trauma coming to the forefront once she finally meets success and fails to find happiness or comfort packaged with the crown.
You fear me.
No, I love you, Azula. I do.
Now, I personally struggle to sympathize with Azula because she's already far too gone, lacks any remorse as an evil villain, and doesn't seem to be interested in changing anytime soon. However, I do recognize the inherent tragedy of a broken character. I mean, it's genuinely fascinating to watch her awkwardly fumble at being a normal teenage girl, even more so than other teens. She's a product of a venomous upbringing who has no moral compass or basic social cues.
You're pretty.
Together, you and I will be the strongest couple in the entire world. We will dominate the Earth!
To be honest, I wish we had more scenes of Azula trying to fit in with people outside of a cult. I did also find myself invested in a relationship with Zuko, a sibling bond that's greatly complicated by an unhealthy competition for fatherly love, yet also tied together by shared childhood experiences that only they mutually understand, leading to Azula becoming an intriguingly inconsistent sister to Zuko, bouncing between acting deviously underhanded, frustratingly ambiguous, mockingly mean, and yet also surprisingly supportive?
Believe it or not, I'm looking out for you. If people find out you've been to see Uncle, they'll think you're plotting with him.
I can't say that Azula's final fight against Zuko is maybe my favorite battle. A climactic face-off that's balanced out thanks to both sides having exploitable weaknesses. But it's also rich in emotion and tension due to these siblings' long conflictive history.
No lighting today? What's the matter? Afraid I'll redirect it?
I'll show you lightning!
Oh, and even as someone that feels no pity at all for Azula, I can't deny how haunting her eventual loss is, with the puppet-pleasing perfectionist processing a major failure in real time right in front of her eyes, as she writhes in tormented agony over what her humiliating defeat means for her future. Admiral Zhao, this no-nonsense Fire Nation official, has been assigned to take over the Avatar hunt, and he just so happens to have far more resources and power than the prince as a hunter. Zhao is a villain that has mastered every field as a military man, so much so that he casually glides up the army ranks throughout the season he's in, as he makes a fall out of his teenage rival with his ever-increasing advantages.
Prince Zuko, it was a noble effort. But your little smokescreen didn't work.
He's an antagonist that oozes wicked cunning and strategizes his every move with unflinching confidence, all thanks to his natural instinct for considering all angles and understanding how careful precision is the key to success.
Where do you think the Avatar is headed, sir?
I'm not sure, but I bet a certain banished prince will know.
This intellect also branches out into his face-to-face confrontations, because he's more than capable of reading his opponents and pressing them into giving the info that he craves, making him into a foe that you can't easily deceive.
What? Did we crash or something?
Yes. Right into an Earth Kingdom ship.
Really? You must regale me with all the thrilling details.
It also helps that Zhao is a highly experienced and passionately intense firebender, who has perfected his elemental craft like it's one of his extra senses, a talent that's made even more scary by how he creepily embraces the dangerous side of fire and takes sick joy from how unforgivingly destructive it can be. While his former teacher sees fire as a curse, Zhao relishes in the element's potential to scourge the world, which does explain his loyalty to Ozai.
I can't believe my former master has become nothing more than a simple savage.
It is you who have embraced savagery, Zhao.
This isn't to say that Zhao is driven entirely by cold logic. He's more human than machine, and his weaknesses are made obvious through his bloated hubris. Sure, Zhao's pride isn't unfounded, as he has worked hard to rise to the top, but it's also made him rather immature, and his narcissism can distract him with daydreams of his future legacy, an egotistical obsession that is essentially the crux of his villainy. Heck, as insightful and calculated as Zhao comes off, his ego is easier to bruise than a banana, and it can be entertainingly fascinating to see someone outwit him, because these losses embarrassingly strip Zhao of his desired legendary mythos, plus expose how his cruel lack of restraint is also a self-humiliating folly.
You haven't thrown a single blow!
No, but you have.
Not to mention, his cartoonish levels of self-grandeur are downright ridiculous, with his ambitions becoming notably off the wall in his highly imposing invasion of the Northern Water Tribe, as he maniacally bites off more than he can chew, under the wild delusion that destroying the moon will make him into a fabled hero.
The Fire Nation will for generations tell stories about the great Zhao who darkened the moon. They will call me Zhao the Conqueror, Zhao the Moon Slayer.
Only to deservedly fall prey to an actual deity with power that Zhao can only dream of having. Although, his revealed fate in Legend of Korra is maybe worse than death. An eternity of suffering with his own lunatic ego is his only company.
I am Zhao the Conqueror. I will capture you!
Feel free to watch my other cartoon villain ranking videos. I've been Jambareeqi. Cheerio, folks.